what we want to talk about today is the situation we find ourselves in, the state of period poverty, and what we are doing in response, and what we want to encourage the entire menstrual movement to do in response. The fight for period poverty has never been more important, has never been more powerful, has never been more successful, but as we all know, is getting harder by the day. So I want to take a couple minutes to set the tone. The current state of period poverty is fairly dire. Nearly 1 in 4 US students can't afford period products, and nearly 1 in 3 Americans and Canadians can't regularly access the products they need. This impacts attendance. It also impacts engagement at work. We know from data that it impacts extracurricular and scholastic activities. And unfortunately, we know that it impacts self-confidence. It also impacts things like knowledge about one's body, health, bodily autonomy. It impacts the way that we approach our healthcare, that we approach our healthcare practitioners, and the way that we manage our own healthcare. So when we talk about period poverty, I want to make sure that we understand that it is a symptom of many other things. Period poverty is itself not a crisis in a bottle. It is a symptom of economic injustice, of gender injustice, of racial and educational injustice. It is a symptom of all of those things. That said, it is solvable. We know that by making period products affordable and accessible, we can solve this problem. And so while the situation is dire, we have ways to fix it. One of the ways to fix it is, in general, to put it into the social safety net. Period products are not able to be purchased in most public assistance programs. The ones that we all know about are probably SNAP and WIC, although they look different in every state. And for the most part, by and large, period products are not accessible via those programs. If you are someone or your family is reliant on government assistance, period products are simply not on that list or very difficult to attain. And so we need to put it in the social safety net. One of the things that I always want to make people think about when we talk about this problem is, how did this happen? How is it that such a basic product, such a basic aspect of healthcare is not considered in our social safety net? Well, let's think for a minute about who created the social safety net. The social safety net as we know it, at least here in the United States, was largely created in the 30s, 40s, and early 50s, mostly part of the New Deal, and then after World War II. Who were the folks in power then? They were not folks with periods, for the most part, right? And folks who did have periods, we're not talking about them openly. There's a lot of stigma and privacy, harmfully, around this topic. And so one way to think about our work is that it's simply work of repair. We need to repair the social safety net to include menstrual health. Not just menstrual health management, but actual menstrual health. We need to repair systems of pricing and taxation. As many of you here know, currently 20 states still tax period products as consumer items rather than essential goods. This is a repair to our tax code. So I encourage us to frame it this way, because when you think of it that way, it really makes you realize how solvable this crisis is. And it makes you put out a pretty clear roadmap in front of you of what we need to do to fix it. So here's the good news. Today's younger generation, many of you are on this call, younger than me, refuse to live in stigma. They are not embarrassed about this topic. They refuse to have it be taboo. They want to learn about it, and the data bears it out. Overwhelmingly, like almost 90% of US respondents aged 13 to 18 want menstrual health curriculum to be part of a core curriculum, just like math or science. Kids get it. They understand that it affects over half the world's population, something they go through every month for almost a week. Why in the world isn't it talked about? So our job in this movement is to harness their confidence and their joy and their ability to center themselves in this work as we solve it. But all of this work just got a lot harder. As soon as the inauguration happened on January 20th, all of a sudden we were all hit with executive orders that affected all of us. Executive orders that froze funding to nonprofits, that canceled health-related research grants, that cut off block grants to states. And these executive orders that threatened to punish institutions that did DEI work. Big, scary DEI phrase. And what that has done, even if it has not affected us personally, for example, Period is luckily not reliant on federal funding, it has created this massive chilling effect that we have all seen. We've all seen other organizations have to cancel programs, cut off funding, change language, how they talk about things, start having their programs in secret, have to scramble for other funding because they're concerned this is going to be cut off. That chilling effect has most certainly impacted Period. We have seen some corporate partners walk away or put a pause on funding for fear that they don't know what's going to happen. And rightly so. It is a scary time. So this chilling effect is real. What I want to talk to you all today about is we are not going to let that chilling effect impact any of our work here at Period and hopefully anywhere in the whole movement to end period poverty. In fact, we're doubling down. So just because our work got harder doesn't mean that our work changes. Our vision doesn't change. Our language about our work doesn't change. In fact, we are digging down more into equitable language, gender inclusive language than ever before. What we have to remember is while we are not in a position of power right now, that people are powerful. There are truly more of us than them. And so I wanted to have this meeting today to make people understand that we don't want to pre-comply with an order that hasn't been given to us directly. Let's not accidentally let that chilling effect impact our work. Our work got harder, but it didn't change. I would be remiss if I talked any more without acknowledging Dr. Chambers, who just introduced herself here on this call. She was the one in the board meeting in the first quarter of this year who said, we just got to double down. We got to double down. When we had that unfortunate conversation that every nonprofit board had this year, which is, do we edit our language? Do we shrink back a little bit so that we're not a target to keep ourselves safe, to keep our program safe? And I think she gave us all chills when she said, no, this is when you double down. So I want to thank her for her wisdom here. I'm glad she's here. So what does this mean practically on a day-to-day basis? It means that for the first time in this movement, we're really on the defense instead of the offense. Period's been around for 10 years. We're about to celebrate a big birthday. And in that 10 years, Period chapters, our work, and our many partners who are on this call have been instrumental in changing laws and policies to make Period products mandated and funded in schools, to repeal the unfair tax on menstrual products, to put menstrual products as part of small social safety net experiments and pilots in different states and cities, to in different counties make sure there's menstrual products in courthouses and libraries. We've seen a lot of success. For the most part, we've been responsible for a lot of culture change. But now all of a sudden we're finding ourselves on the defense. We're going back in some states and we're defending laws that we passed years ago that were not even controversial when we did. We're defending our work to make sure that these products aren't taxed. The other side is emboldened in a way they weren't before. They're louder and they're more visible. And so that defense makes our work harder, but it doesn't change our work. So we're going to talk a little bit in the next few minutes about what we need to do all together to be able to get through the next months and years. And it's about reframing this whole movement and this whole moment. It is not just a time of challenge, it's a time of major opportunity. Where are those aspects of our communities, our societies that we haven't really tapped yet to teach about this crisis? They may not even know that period poverty exists. How can we take this opportunity to dig into our work and to say, This is an overwhelmingly popular solution. It is overwhelmingly popular to make sure that students can live their full and complete lives, that people can go to work, that folks can manage their healthcare in the way that they choose. Where are there areas in your communities, your employers, your churches, your schools that would be open to having this conversation? So in times of duress, we have to grow. It's really hard, but it's the only thing to do. Now, before we move on to some more tactical solutions, I just want to say there are lots of organizations out there, good organizations that we work closely with, that are changing their language out of fear. They're worried that their funding will be at risk. They're stopping using words like equity and gender inclusivity. Everyone is making the best decision they can with the information in front of them. I don't want to vilify any of them or make them feel like they are not doing the right thing. Everyone has to walk through these next few months and years their own way. But I'm telling you what has worked for period and what I encourage you to dig into in your own lives. We have decided not to pre-comply, and we're really confident about that decision. So I encourage you to really kind of do that work on your own and think about how you need to talk about your work to keep yourself safe in your community. These policy threats that we're defending are going to happen at the local, state, and national level. Everyone's emboldened. One of the things I want you to know is that this is a bipartisan issue. This is an issue that affects everyone, no matter of their belief, their party, their voting history. Menstruation touches us all. And so we're going to move forward boldly, knowing that we represent more people than just one side of things. That we represent the solution to a health and economic issue. And we are not going to let stigma or fear get in the way of our work to help women and girls live their full and complete lives. Dama is about to talk about the power of community in this work. But before she does, I want you to think about the word joy. Movements that are joyful are successful. Movements that experience joy, share joy, win. Joy is a strategy. And joy is not the absence of pain, the absence of difficulty, the absence of hurt, but it's the absence of despair. And joy is when you mix hope with work. And so I want this movement to center joy in everything it does. And so think about that as you listen to Dama here talk for a couple minutes about the power of our relationships.
Thank you, Michaela, and thank you all. I just following up on this idea of joy, as Audre Lorde says, oh, can you hear me? As Audre Lorde explains, joy gives us the energy for change. And where does joy come from? And everyone can experience joy in different ways. And a lot of that, and often a big way that comes is through community. And that's one of the big reasons why at Period, we will continue to work with our partnerships. We will continue to work with our partners like all of you. We cannot do this alone. And as you know, no movement in the history or no major change has ever been done in a vacuum. A lot of the work that we do is built with people, and it's built with organizational relationships. And it's really the relationships and partnerships that allow our work to move forward. These are all these big words. These are just people at the end of the day having a great time. And that's what I really want to make sure that we recognize, because this is a really difficult time and it's really distraught, and we're overwhelmed when we look at the news and we just want to yell, and that we've all been there. I've been there, I have, and then we have to connect with each other. I want to remind you, we all know this, but this is the time to really connect with each other and work with people first. We can't do this progress alone. And so I want to give a couple real world examples about that. One is we have a boot camp that some of you may have been a part of. And I'm so happy to share that this boot camp in partnership with Ignite, it's an Activate Your Advocacy boot camp, and it's virtual, and it's for young people to learn the basics 101s of advocacy. And we had over 200 people register this session. I mean, there are literally hundreds of young people that are eager and ready to join in and learn and do it together. We have a Slack channel that people are communicating daily here. Intune has been really involved with ensuring they have the resources for that. But this is showing us that people are ready to learn and do this together, because people can just learn stuff on their own. But no, they want to join a cohort and they want to get involved. And so that is one quick way we're seeing the energy coming up. I also want to spend a couple minutes. We have a partner here of ours in Nebraska. Kristen Laurie Access Period had a hearing this week. So I asked for permission to share a brief story about an experience she had this week, which I think is sort of a great metaphor. There's a hearing this week in Nebraska about a bill, about a menstrual equity bill. And the situation in terms of the climate, like literally the physical climate, there was a blizzard. And so in the middle of the blizzard, they had to decide if they need to go to the hearing. They decided to go the night before so that they can stay at a hotel. We still did an outreach call. We made sure people knew about this. There's a hearing. Let's talk about this, add support. In terms of what happened, I want to show that over 60 people submitted testimony in support of this hearing and support of this bill, excuse me. One person opposed. Kristen, who's on this call, thank you, made it to the hearing in person in the hotel. Now, I want to mention this. She stayed in a hotel overnight where the senators were also staying, because they were snowed in because of the snow. And I probably am not saying this full story and all the details. There's a lot more here. But what I want to highlight is this comment that Michaela had shared earlier. Just because the work gets harder doesn't mean our work stops. These activists, our partners in Nebraska, really went in, even though the circumstances were dire. It was terrible, terrible blizzard. There was power outages. They connected both with senators and other folks at the hotel bar. I mean, they're just talking to people about this issue and why this matters. All in the midst of this mess. Is it also going to give us the exact outcome we may want? We don't know yet. But what we do know, and I'm confident that we can see, is that progress is changing with relationships and with people, even though we disagree. And because there was people on the other side of the aisle at this hotel lobby, and they were all snowed in, and they were like, oh, interesting. Taking the circumstances of the climate that were not ideal with other people to join forces, ask questions, learn, and see what we can make progress on, even if we don't get the exact results when we see it at the moment. I was talking to Kristen, and I was like, this is just such a metaphor for all of us right now. And I leave us with that, of recognizing that although that was not ideal, we're seeing some change. And with that, that's part of the resistance. Our partners and people could just be like, I'm not going to go to this hearing. It's hard. And it is. She's got people have families. Like, people don't want to be, it's hard, and it is not easy. It is not convenient. And this is not a convenient time. What we can do is work with each other, who can do what. And sometimes if you need a rest and tap out, that's okay. Can you take that? We got to work on this together, because even you all being here on a Friday talking about this, our presence here with each other is part of this resistance. It is recognizing. I saw, Jess, I saw you on the comments saying, I just want to hop on a call in the middle of everything to hear. Thank you for being here. And thanks to all of you. All of this is part of us, ideally, remembering that we're not alone, even wherever you are in the country. You're not alone in whatever our different fights are, but recognizing that organizing, and we have similar values, even if we have different organizations, different day-to-day, what that looks like. We want to do this with joy. We want to move forward. We can take breaks if we need to, but we gotta keep going, and we gotta keep going together. So with that, I'll pass it on to Candace, and we'll talk more about how we can do this together with partnerships.
Thanks, Dama. Something I want to start with is something Michaela told me. Like I said, I've been in marketing for 10 years, been on the brand side, and she said every successful movement in history has been well funded. And I'll be the first to say I've been at Period for about 7 months now, and I don't always feel the most equipped to talk about this subject. I'm always second guessing myself. But the one thing that I do know, and the one thing that I feel very strongly about bringing to this movement, is funding, right? And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how we can get creative when you're thinking, how do we talk to brands, for instance, and foundations about this? How do we have partnerships with each other? And I am going to do that just by giving some examples of things that we have accomplished here at Period since I've come on board. First, I want to talk about Thinks underwriting the state of the period every other year. For those of you who don't know, I used to work at Thinks, and so I was introduced to Period because I was the person on that side advocating for us to be able to do the study. And then, not just do the study, but I said we should donate product because of this, and we should have a whole marketing rollout. And that was one, to make sure we were supporting Period as much as we could. But if I can be quite frank, it was great for business, right? It definitely, we saw a boost in sales on days that we worked with Period. We did things called like cart donations, where we would ask our customers, hey, do you want to donate $5 to support a menstrual cycle? That did amazingly for business. So I encourage you, if you're a brand and you're thinking about the bottom line and you want to help the movement, but you also have higher ups who maybe don't care as much as you do, that's something to talk about. And if you are a nonprofit, think about how you can ladder up to company goals when you're talking to companies. But I also want to talk about Way Hair Care, who we just partnered with, and they didn't just donate, they activated their community and used their platform to drive awareness. They built us into their entire strategy for advocacy for the year. And they're not saying, oh, we need this to affect our bottom line at all. They're saying, we care about women, we care about health, and we want to put, money to support your operations. That's something that companies should care about. We have in other creative ways, partnered with brands like Motrin and retailers like Walgreens in campaigns where a portion of every bottle sold went to Period for a set time. I think that's a great way and a very low lift way, because all you have to do is put some end caps on in Walgreens, or, be on their website. We work with foundations like Wayfarer Foundation, who is providing long-term operational support for us. That is something that I find very important to note when I'm speaking to funders. I'm like, yes, of course we can do a program, but you don't want to put a heavier lift on us as an organization. We're already doing amazing work. We need you to help us fund that. And also just finding brands who naturally align with what your nonprofit does. That is super important, because of course all of us want to go, let's say, to Reebok, right? We're thinking Reebok has money, but Motrin cares about menstrual pain. Thinks is a Period underwear. I do think, some people want to spread the net wide, but in these times when everything we say and do matters, it's more important than ever to find alignment in the foundations that you're applying for. I have a grants manager here at Period, Jasmine, who helps keep me on track with making sure we are talking to the right foundations. We're encouraging companies to make public financial commitments. We're posting about it on social media. We are putting media dollars behind it. And brands and investing in research like Period does. A big part of what we're doing is advocacy and education. So anytime that a brand, another partner could funnel into that and we can do that together, I think is amazing. So I want to just leave with this. For brands, I want to say align your funding with your values, partner authentically, donate. Like, just give a corporate donation and say, we want to support you. It doesn't always have to be this whole hoopla. And when you do that, use your platform for change. For funders, invest in long-term solutions. Invest in research, education, and direct funding to sustain this movement. And for our advocates and activists, we want to push for partnerships that drive real financial support. We don't only want to focus on awareness. Like everyone, we definitely need awareness and we love awareness, but we also love cash money, okay? We need that so that the people doing this work, can buy groceries, and so that, Period's office that Michaela is sitting in is well, taken care of. That's really important. And for Period supporters, please challenge brands to go beyond statements, demand that they take action. If you are an employee somewhere, maybe talk to your employer about how you can put your social responsibility dollars to the movement, because that's so important. And also tell them to email me Candace@period.org, because that's the most important part. And I welcome questions. Anybody who wants to talk about this subject, I do nerd out about this, and that's why I'm keeping it very short, because I will go on a tangent, as everybody at Period knows.
Thank you, Dama and Candace. I'm so glad that we're having a conversation that talks about all aspects of these organizations, especially for those of you in the call, because I see some of you from smaller nonprofits. We do have to talk about funding. It can be an uncomfortable conversation for some folks, but these nonprofits need support, right? We all need support. And so if there's any tips we can give you too, and any partnerships that we can do with you, let us know. I think that in this time of challenge, as we see government dollars back away, how can we challenge our own communities to step in? Because it's our job, right? It's all of our job to help each other, and we can do it. So before we go over to questions, I want to talk a little bit about some calls to action that everyone here can do. Because it's one thing to hear this and hear some positive voices and go out and say, okay, it's all going to be okay, but let's put something tangible against it. So I think the first thing you can do is start talking about periods with people in your life that you may not have talked about before. What community are you in? School, church, work, a women's group, a service group, a sorority that maybe hasn't touched this aspect of the movement yet? Talk about it. If you go to our website, on our education page, we have several modules of curriculum that we've authored over the years, along with partners, some who are on this call. Ask for a meeting, share a curriculum with them. Do you know a school nurse who wants to talk about period poverty in their school? We have a curriculum for that. We have wonderful resources to start these conversations. So start the conversation. Let's think creatively and bring new parties in, right? Then take the next step. Can you organize a product drive in your community and donate it to a local school or period chapter or organization? If you don't know how to do that, let us help you. Let us help connect you. Learn about if your city or county or state has period product access laws. Do they mandate products in schools in your state? Does your state tax period products? Learn about it. And if you want to be a part of making change, contact us. I'm certain that there is a state coalition you can join, and there's an advocacy movement that you can be a part of. Introduce period to folks in your community. See if there's a local period chapter near you. And support period directly. We have some pretty incredible donors on this call already, and I want to thank you deeply for your commitment over the years. Keep it up. Talk about it. Talk about your generosity. Talk about why it's important to you. This is not a time to shy back from being really public about the things we're passionate about. This is the time to double down and talk vocally and visibly about the things we care about. And if you have the honor of working in the menstrual equity movement, like so many of you on this call, and the menstrual equity movement is people who work for other organizations similar to Period, or maybe you are a healthcare practitioner, then make sure that you are working with joy and confidence and not working out of fear in the coming months and years, because this is a joyful space and we are honored to walk alongside you in it.